Hi, my name is Sarah Kemp, and I'm going to present to you today about abortion and why I believe that abortion should be legal and why I am pro-choice. Now, where do you stand on abortion? Have you perhaps been presented any information outside of your religious stance on abortion, or perhaps your political stance? Now, how often do you hear about abortion in politics? Pretty frequently, especially nowadays with the newest presidential election coming up. We're going to hear a lot about abortion and whether or not a candidate is pro-life or pro-choice. Now, do we really even know what they mean when they say these things? Now, since most of Wisconsin is considered conservative, it is safe to say that many of you are probably pro-life. For me, I'm pro-choice because there's never a scenario that we could account for that is always black or always white. We could never account for the endless situations that may arise when it comes to pregnancies. Now, if you don't believe that abortion should be legal, maybe you can further identify why. Maybe it's because of religious conviction. Maybe it's because of the personhood debate. The personhood debate is whether or not the fetus is considered a person while it's in vitro, or during the pregnancy, or obviously after it's been born. I would like to present some information about the sheer number of abortions that take place. Not to shock you, not to make you feel bad, but to show how commonplace it really is. And then perhaps, why would we consider stopping this? If it is so common, why would we want to stop it? I know it sounds horrible, especially if you believe that abortion is murder. But for me, it's all about choice. So let's talk about induced abortions. Some facts to consider. According to the Guttmacher Institute, since 1973, about 50 million abortions have been performed in the United States. That's a lot of abortions that have taken place, and a lot of abortions that could have gone horribly wrong had abortions not been legalized. Some other stats to consider, and since probably 50% of you in this room are female, this is going to hit home. Half of all pregnancies among American women are unintended. So, for me, I have 2 kids. That means it's probable that one of my 2 kids were unintended. And then out of 4 in 10 of these unintended pregnancies end in abortion. So that's a 40%. That's a lot of people that have chosen this path. Now, there's many reasons why this has taken place, and I'm not here to judge why. But I just want to talk about that 21% of pregnancies end in abortion. I wonder what would happen to these pregnancies had they not ended in abortion. In 2011, 1.6 million abortions were performed. It just seems like such a high number. Yes, I know. But what is really important for me is that's 1.6 million choices, a choice that somebody has made for themselves that some people want to take away from them. Now, I'd like to also take a look at this map of the United States. The National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws has graded America and each state on women's access to reproductive rights. So this basically says that a woman has or has not access to, let's say, safe abortions. Wisconsin has received the ranking of a D, a grade of a D, and the United States on the whole has received the grade of a D as well. So this just says to me that there's a lot of people in a lot of the states that are completely against a woman allowing a woman to have a choice as to what she should do with her own body. Now let's take a look politically by state whether or not the governors of each state are pro-choice or pro-life. According to this particular statistic, obviously our current president is pro-choice and our current vice president is mixed, but only 14 governors out of our entire United States are pro-choice. Double as many are actually anti-abortion altogether. So with the state legislator, we want to take a look as well as to how many of these states are pro-life. Not very many, 5. So for me, I have a hard time swallowing that pill. That's an awful lot of people that want to prevent women from being able to have a choice. So I ask you, is it ever black and white, or blue and black, or blue and gold? Is there ever just one perception that is correct? And we know that that's not the case. So I have a really hard time saying that this is right or wrong in any one situation. I can think of numerous situations that take place that I feel that abortion should be legal. Absolutely. Now, I'm not particularly comfortable with late-term pregnancy abortions, but I also want to highlight the fact that this is about choice. So the problem for me, isn't it my body and my choice? And moreover, if you want to take away my choice about whether or not I want to do something with my body, perhaps because the unborn child could cause physical harm to me, I think that is actually quite horrible to want to take that right away from me. So one of the biggest issues that has been brought up in the recent months, especially with the presidential election coming up, is the anti-choice people and what their tactics are in order to hinder abortions. We've heard, I'm sure we've heard over the years, of the different violent tactics that have taken place to intimidate doctors and patients. And then on top of that, just the abortion bans themselves block legal abortions at certain points, and therefore, the women end up having to go and find other methods of achieving what they wish to do. Unnecessary regulations also target different abortion providers. So in some states, there's basically no abortion providers. I think I had read somewhere in Wisconsin, there's less than one abortion provider per several counties. So there are an awful lot of restrictions for access to abortions as is, and yet we still hear about them wanting to ban even more so. So the analogy that I want to bring up is the unconscious violinist. This is a famous analogy that has been used to describe a scenario that might help you to understand what it would be like to choose or not choose to have an abortion. The unconscious violinist is about you waking up in the morning one day and find yourself back to back in bed with an unconscious violinist, a famous violinist, mind you, and he has been found to have fatal kidney ailment. And the Society of Music Lovers has found that your blood type matches the violinist, and they have therefore plugged you in. And now it is your responsibility to keep this unconscious violinist alive, and you have to stay in bed with the violinist, and you're not able to unplug him because if you do, then the violinist dies. So on the whole, you can probably see what it would be like to have somebody plugged into you. And what if they had affected your body negatively? What if you have to stay in bed for 9 months? What if you're attached to this violinist for 9 years, 18 years? Because isn't that what happens when we have children? Now, it is up to you to make the decision of whether or not to allow the violinist to stay plugged into you. And primarily, you would think, yes, of course, it's the kind thing to do. But isn't it a little bit outrageous to think we are required to do that? It's required of us to keep this violinist plugged into us, using our body, using our systems. And yet, in the same sense, with abortion, we have to do the same thing with pregnancy. So unplugging or aborting is virtually the same thing. So I'd like for you to consider, in conclusion, that there are scenarios that we can't account for. There are scenarios that are never black and white, and that preventing abortions from happening, banning abortions, and restricting access to abortions is far more detrimental than at least allowing access to and regulating it as such. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope that I've at least helped you to better understand why I myself am pro-choice.